Hi, I'm Ryan Malyar. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Marlborough Minute here in the city of Marlborough, Massachusetts. Today I'm joined by Councilor Mark Vital. Thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Now, there's a lot of buzz on Facebook, and people are saying you got to get in touch with Mark. He was doing a really interesting thing to bring attention to a very important and timely matter in the Marlborough community. I'll let you take the floor here and tell me what you were doing.
Well, originally I was going to do some camping in the cold weather to bring awareness up to the homeless. There were a number of tent cities, if you will, for lack of a better term, little hubs of tents where our homeless are sleeping in this weather. Some of them were very close to even the downtown area, and I went out and talked with them, and I feel their pains, and I said that we need to just, as a community, we need to come together to address, because the homeless that I talked with, and over 20 different homeless people, the vast majority of them are from Marlborough. They knew me when I used to teach down at the high school, and they say, "Hey, Mr. Vital, you have my sister in class," and I'd have all these conversations like that. And I said, these are not transients from Boston. These are Marlborough's children that are living in tents and living in their cars and walking the streets. So I said I have to do something.
Yeah, so you weren't able to camp, so what did you end up doing instead?
So I ended up, and I'm glad I did. I really am. It was life-altering, to say the least. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought it was going to, and it wasn't easy. So what I did was I set up a 7-mile course, and I wanted to go to 7 different churches, and we can talk about that later or not, whatever, up to you, and walked 12 hours around town, starting at 7 p.m. and finishing up 7 o'clock the next morning.
And this was on a cold night, too.
This night was, I was going to go Monday, and I had something personal come up, so I went last Tuesday night. The first 4 or 5 hours with the wind gusts, was probably somewhere between -5 and -10 degrees. That's how cold it was.
And along the way, you were checking in on Facebook and stuff?
Yeah, every hour. I promised the folks on Facebook that every hour I would go live and kind of tell people where I'm at and how I'm doing and some of the things I experienced walking in the shoes of a homeless person.
So tell me more about what revelations and what other...
My first stop, I started at City Hall, and my first stop was at the First Church. Well, that's only a quarter mile away, so I had an hour to burn, so I just did an awful lot of walking, but it was cold. So 2 things that happened that first hour was, one, I went into Domino's, and I sat down, and about 5 minutes later, I felt guilt because I wasn't buying a pizza. And I know they're a great organization, Domino's. The homeless people have told me this, so that's why I wanted to go in there. But I felt guilt, and I suspect the homeless feel guilt every time they kind of tuck into a warm place. They may not be able to buy anything yet. And then I walked. This was we probably have seen this on numerous movies. But then I walked Granger Boulevard, and then walking by Wemmy's, and I'm looking up at these big, beautiful picture-framed windows, and I'm thinking all these awesome people are inside having a wonderful meal. They're laughing, they're warm, and life is good for them. But life is not so good for me as I'm walking by, because at that point there was a headwind, and it was, my face was almost falling off.
Yeah, it's like Hans Christian Andersen, the little match girl, walking by and seeing the parties and all the things, and not able to get inside and warm up.
Right. So these experiences I had throughout the night that really, really opened my eyes. I thought I knew the homeless. Sweats for Vets I've been doing now for, almost 15 years. But you don't really know somebody until you walk in their shoes.
Right.
And I learned a lot. When I was up at the Immaculate Conception, I wanted to show the community fridge, and this woman came up and she goes, "I'm looking for the counselor." And I said, "Well, right here." She goes, "How?" She goes, "I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing. I think it's the greatest thing, and God bless you." And then she says to me, she goes, "Would you want to say the Pledge of Allegiance with me?" Because the flag was blowing so much on the pole in front of IC that, you heard it, So I said, "Sure, I'm a vet. I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance with you." So here we are at, 9:30 at night saying the Pledge of Allegiance in the freezing cold. And I asked her where she was from. She was very evasive, but she hopped in her car and went away. And I'm pretty certain she was she was homeless herself. And she just wanted to come up and thank me for what I was doing.
So you've done a lot to bring attention now to this subject.
Yes.
What can we do and put into concrete action? What is the city doing, and where do you see room for improvement?
Well, there's an awful lot of improvement. I mean, if you talk with any of the supporters out there, for lack of a better term, they'll say, "Well, we have housing for them, and they don't want it. They don't want it." And it's not about how, I remember taking this, you probably took it half a dozen times too. You remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Right? In half a dozen different courses, we learned about that, right? And housing is like up on the third level. When I was walking out there, I had a couple of dear friends give me coffee. 15 minutes after, I had to go to the bathroom. Where do I go in the bathroom if I'm homeless? Right? There is no place. There is no place in what would they? I mean, you can sneak into Funky Murphy's. I did. Didn't buy anything, but I snuck in there just like a homeless person might have to do. I snuck into the Prospector at 1:30 at night, at 1:30 in the morning, because I had to go right then and there. So it's not about having this nice apartment. It's about taking care of the most basic of needs. Needs like, where can they go to the bathroom? Like as I'm walking up Chestnut Street of all streets, that's kind of like where I grew up a little bit. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and my nose was drip, 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 drip. And I said, where can I get I guess maybe I can get a napkin over at 7-Eleven. But, just getting a napkin or a piece of toilet paper to wipe my nose becomes something greater. My whole life, it's been 3 steps in any direction, and I can get a piece of toilet paper or a napkin to wipe my nose. The homeless don't have those things. The homeless don't take 5 steps, go down to the kitchen and make a sandwich. They cannot do that in the middle of the night. They can't go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. They can't get a drink of water. Like, you and I get up in the middle of the night, we say, boy, my mouth's all dry. Go to the bathroom, you get some faucet, drink, you go back to bed. They can't do that. So until you walk in their shoes and really experience the fact that I got to go to the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not proud of this, but I'll say it because it happened. I ended up peeing behind it. It was 3:30 in the morning. There was no place nearby that I could go to the bathroom, and I peed behind the dumpster, praying to God there's no thermal camera that's going to get the city councilor down there peeing on their dumpster. I lived, for a short amount of time, I lived what it must be like to be living in a car, living in a tent, living in the woods. In this society, that shouldn't happen. So we got to do more. So the basic thing. So I'm calling it a dignity drive, and that might be, and I'm going to talk either to the city or I talked with the Rotary yesterday, and that might be to have something as simple as a portalet that's somewhere at a central location that the homeless could go and just go to the bathroom. Right? I mean, in the middle of the night, they can just go to the bathroom, which sounds so foreign to most people, but it exists out there for the homeless. It's funny, I'll share this story with you. It's pretty powerful. So I talked to 2 pastors in town, 2 heads of state of churches, and we're talking about the homeless. And they said, Mark, she goes, we got to be careful with the homeless because, we have found needles on our property. The homeless have defecated on our property. And when I was walking alone the other night, there was no one with me. The only person that was with me was God. God was walking with me. There was no one else out there. And I think the same thing happens to the homeless. I think that when they get down to a level where they have nobody else, they seek God. And I think that they go to churches all hours of the night, hoping that the front doors are open so that they can get warm, maybe go to the bathroom, and maybe God can help them. And they go up there and the doors are locked. God's not there. And they got to go to the bathroom. What do you tell somebody who's homeless, seeking out God at 3 in the morning, and has no place to go to the bathroom? Do we say that, they shouldn't defecate on that property? I mean, that's not right. No, that's not. We have to say, why is that situation happening to begin with? And then how do we resolve it at the very basic levels? So a portalet, I would love if I can, and I'm going to seek out, they have these trailers that have showers and bathrooms in the trailer itself so that people can come up and take a shower. Because right now, again, you and I, we take 4 steps, we're in the shower, we shampoo. No, we don't. Some of us don't shampoo, but we have shampoo. And out the door you go. Well, they have no place. But they are very resourceful. The homeless that I talk to, they know where they can go in the bathrooms around town and wash up in the sink. So they do the best they can with what they have. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to say, we're a community that if somebody's homeless, they can go into this trailer and take a warm shower.
Now, you did mention earlier that there is housing available.
Not enough.
There is not enough?
And not for single women.
Okay.
And even our own rolling house up on Mechanic Street, they're operating at about 157, 160% occupancy, meaning they're always full. And if you call up there and say, hey, can I have a bed? They'll say, yeah, we expect a bed to be available next Tuesday. So that homeless person, that gentleman I talked to last week, he was living in his car, but his car needed brakes. So for 3 nights, he was walking the streets of Marlborough. He went to Rowan House, but there was no answer there. There was no solution. He called a bunch of places, and no one helped him out. So he was just walking the streets of Marlborough. He actually went to a lot of the same places that he called me up. I wanted to help me more than I could. And I told him about the locations like CVS and these places that are open 24 hours. And thank God we did, because the nights that he was out there walking, it was a cold night too.
So what would you hope to see as a solution? Is it accepting that there will always be homeless people and finding ways for them to be clean and have access to toilets? Or is it really attacking and finding ways to house people and rehabilitate?
First of all, I have a strong faith. Let's start there. And I don't mean to turn this into a religious conversation, but I will, because I really believe that
And I'm just approaching this as a journalist. I've got my views and opinions too. Sure. This is your platform.
So I put together the map. That's strange. I got 7 churches. I go, why do I know something about 7 churches? But I had no idea. Mm-hmm. So I Googled it. I said, the Bible, 7 churches. Well, in the book of Revelations, Christ tells the Apostle John to send out 7 notes to 7 churches, telling them to repent their ways. That's kind of strange. 7 churches. Then I said to myself, how about 7 miles? I go, there was no miles back in those days, but maybe there's some significance. So I did 7 miles, and I said, the Bible, enter. And in the book of Luke, with gospel, after the resurrection of Christ, 2 of the apostles are walking from Jerusalem to another city. I can't remember the name of it. And along the way, they see a stranger, and the stranger and them, they talk back and forth about, everything about Christ. And then when they get there, the 2 apostles tell the stranger, hey, come on in and have some supper. That was the way that it was done back then. And when they broke the bread, it was revealed to them that it was a resurrected Christ, that they had been walking with Christ the last 7 miles. Mm. So you tell me, I'm not smart enough to plan that out ahead of time. I somehow selected 7 churches, and I somehow walked 7 miles. Where's the answer? I think part of the answer, and it doesn't belong up in the ivory tower of City Hall. It kind of belongs in the community, I think. And I think that the churches are a great place to start. Over 200 times all these churches that I went to are all Christian churches, not the same denomination. There was one Catholic and one Apostolic, one Angelic Catholic, one Orthodox Catholic, one, I went to Bethel Presbyterian on Lincoln Street. I went up to, what was the other ones? I went to the Greek Church, the First Baptist, the First Church right behind us. Yeah. And they were all Christian. And in the gospel, over 200 times in the gospel, it talks about how we're supposed to take care of our neighbor, how we're supposed to help the poor, how we're supposed to help the meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. But we don't work together to do that well. Every church does a little bit. Some do a little bit more. But if we imagine if all those churches, came together to address the issue here in town, wow, I'm not saying we would totally eliminate homelessness, but it would be such a small number that we would never need to talk about it anymore.
Well, it certainly seems like you found a calling, which is something that which you've been called to this sort of service for a very long time with Sweats for Vets, and now
And my women's shelter that I did with the Rotary,
yeah.
there's some serious concerns out there, and I'd just like to help out.
And of course, I believe in Kismet and fate and all those things, and maybe there is some prophecy being foretold through your Google searches and your mission that you're doing right now.
Possibly.
I hope it has a favorable outcome, and I hope this is all leading to something much greater for you and for the community.
Thank you, Kelly. Right?
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the end of this episode of Marlborough Minute, and it's such a pleasure to be joined by City Councilor Mark Vital. And thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you soon.